Hello, everybody. Today, I will repeat the first lecture very fast of our course, database system. First, we'll talk about core syllabus. We already did it last lecture. You can see the PDF file in the OneDrive folder. Now, we'll go to what is database. The definition of database is collection of data which is stored in a logical, structural, and ordinary manner. Generally stored and accessed electronically from a computer system. But many databases can also be held on paper sheet, such as phone book, example, yellow pages, or law firm, مكتب المحاماة, على طول فيه signature. The client must sign on each paper, so it must be hard copy, not only soft copy, hard copy. So law firm, مكتب المحاماة, also accounting firm, مكتب محاسبة. Okay, so what is DBMS? The database management system, DBMS, is the software. It is the software that interact with end user applications and the database itself. Okay, example, MySQL database or platform or software or DBMS. It's a free database system. PostgreSQL free database system. Microsoft Access, it's not free. Microsoft SQL Server, it's not free, and so on. Oracle, and so on. So in our lab, we'll focus on Microsoft Access with lot of examples and SQL Server and the interconnection between them, the communication between Microsoft Access and SQL Server. So since there are so many database management systems available, it's important to communicate with each other. Like we said before, we want to communicate from Microsoft Access to Microsoft SQL Server using database softwares, also using Open Database Connectivity, ODBC driver, that allows us to communicate with other database. We'll see it later. Why we want to use database? As we said before, databases are used to manage collections of data that are highly valuable, relatively large, big data. We cannot manipulate big data. And very important point, accessed by multiple users and applications at the same time. So if we use database like paper sheet, we cannot access multiple users at the same paper sheet. We cannot. Also, if we use database like Excel, Microsoft Excel, yes, Microsoft Excel, it's database software, but for small applications. We cannot do it. Also, Notepad or any editor, Word, Microsoft Word or Notepad or any editor, text editor, we can use it as database, but they don't have all features of DBMS systems. Okay, so a modern database system is a complex software system whose task is to manage a large, complex collection of data. Also, in our life, everything in our life is database. We'll see how. Examples. In company or enterprise, big company, they have invoices, customers, sales invoices, customers, product items, purchase invoices, and so on. Also in accounting department, they have payment مدفوعات, receipt شو قبضوا من الزباين, assets الcost, the first fixed cost الرأس مال, okay, the starting amount of money. Also in human resources department, they must have information about each employee in the company, its salary or their salaries, payroll tax, and so on. So the big example for our database application is for enterprise, big enterprise or company, big company. Also for manufacturing, المصانع, they want to manage their production, their inventory or stocks, their orders to suppliers, to their customers. Also supply chain, how to travel from country to country, and so on. Of course, the big example is banking and finance. Customers of banking, information customers, accounts, loans, and every transactions happen inside the bank. Also the credit card transactions via website or via ATM machines and so on. Also finance, sales and purchase of finance instrument, example stocks and bonds, means real-time market data مثل البورصة, forex, and so on. Of course, in our example, an educational example is universities. We have registration page or form, and we have for each course it's a grade. Also, big example for airlines tickets, reservation tickets, and so on, schedule of take off and take down the airplane, and so on. Of course, our communication between us via telecommunication, records of calls, text and data usage, or video, WhatsApp, and so on. Don't forget the web-based services. Now we have online retailer, order tracking, customized recommendation, online advertising, also e-commerce websites like Amazon.com, Alibaba.com, AliExpress.com, eBay, and so on and so on and so on. So e-commerce is a big example, especially in COVID, in lockdown, in COVID-19. We have now everyone sit in its home. So e-commerce is very important now. Also, the navigation systems for maintaining the location of variable places for interest. Okay. Hello. Okay, sorry for interruption. So we have why we use database system. For what points? For the following points, we must use a good database software, like to manipulate or handle or to avoid the following problems. Example, the data redundancy and inconsistency. الدقة بالمعلومات, same data is stored in multiple file format, resulting in duplication of information in different files. يعني if we use the database software Excel, like Excel, okay, if we want to store the student name, example in the university, student name for the first sheet, student name and its courses, then another sheet in the Excel, the same student name, the same student with its grade or financial transaction, the registration transaction. So the student name is repeated twice or many times in each sheet. So to avoid this replication, this duplication of data, so our good software must handle this problem, data redundancy and inconsistency. Okay. Also, how to access the data very easy. So difficulty in accessing data. We want to avoid this difficulty in accessing data. Also, integrity or accuracy data or problems. As we said before, we must the data saved and retrieved and read it or write it in safe place and accuracy اللي يكون في دقة بالحفظ المعلومات ما يتغير المعلومات. Okay. Also, when you update any field or any record in the database, when accessing the database, example, failures may leave database in inconsistent state with partial update carry out. Example, when you transfer from bank to bank, when you transfer of money from one account to another account in another branch of the bank, the network must be done very well, should either complete or not happen at all. Example, if we transfer money from bank branch 1 to the same bank branch 2, if the network between them is disconnected, if the network is disconnected via DSL line or LAN or WAN or any cable or fiber optics, so if the network between two branches is disconnected, what happened to the intermediate data? If the other branch received incomplete data, so we have a problem. So in this such way, we must use TCP protocol. TCP protocol later in the course network, we'll see it, you will learn it. TCP protocol, the data, if does not received very well, will be removed from the destination source. So TCP protocol verify that the data is received and very well. Whereas another protocol is very faster, like video streaming, UDP protocol. UDP protocol, they don't have handshaking. They don't verify if the data is received or no. Whereas TCP protocol, for each packet send it to the destination, it must be verified by handshaking. We'll see in details in another course. So this is called automaticity of updates. If any updates of data is interrupted or disconnected, what happened for this data? So it must be either complete or not happen at all. So here it must be used TCP protocol. In almost all software, they use TCP protocol, except Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access, they use UDP protocol. They don't have integrity of data or consistency of the data. If the connection is disconnected, so the information will be incomplete. Okay, we'll see later that. As we said before, concurrent access by multiple users. Okay, example, two people reading the same field, the same balance, say 100, and at the same time they update this field, withdrawing money, say 50, at the same time. What happened? Okay, security problems, of course. We must have security problems. So database system offer solution to all the above problems, like Microsoft Access accept updates. Okay, Microsoft SQL Server, it's the best. Oracle database is the best from the best. Okay, and so on. Now we'll take an example of university database example. In this book or text, we'll use a university database to illustrate all the concepts. We'll make a lot of examples on the same database. So the data will be about students, instructors, and the classes or courses. The application program examples how to add new students, a new instructor, and new courses, how to register students for any course and generate class roster. Also, assign grades to students, compute grade point average GPA for each student, and generate transcript reports or أو الإفادة. So we'll talk about this in the following chapters. Okay, now before we begin in the example, we have a view of data. The database, another repetition here, is a collection of interrelated data and a set of programs that allow users to access and modify this data. A major purpose of a database system is to provide users with an abstract view of the data. Abstract view of the data. We have data model, a collection of conceptual tools for describing data and data relationship between each other, and data semantic and consistency constraint. We'll see them each one. Also, we have view of data as abstraction, data abstraction. Hide the complexity of data structures to represent data in the database from users through several levels of abstraction level. Example, data models, a collection of tools for describing data, data relationship, data constraint. Example, relational model. ERD model will focus on these two. Okay, entity relationship data, ERD model or ERD diagram for our database design. We have other data model like object-based data model, also XML model, semi-structured XML. They use it in JavaScript or web-based, and other older models like network model and hierarchical model. So we'll focus in our labs in these two important data model, relational model and entity relationship or ARD diagram. So they are very, 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 very important. Okay, we'll talk about object and XML in fast. Example, or the relational model, all the data is stored in various tables. This is example. Example here, we have this table called instructor table. It's called instructor table. Okay. Each rows or each record, this row is called record in the database. Each record or each rows contains different columns or different attributes or fields. So ID for each instructor, its instructor name, in which department, and its salary. Example here. Okay, so this table has many rows and 4 columns or 4 attributes. Okay, in the level of abstraction, in physical level describes how a record, example the same table, is stored. In logical level, describe data stored in database and the relationship among the data. We'll see how in example. Example here, type instructor equal record, ID, the type is a string, name, the type is a string, department name also string, salary is integer. So this is the logical level. View level at the top, hide details of data type. View can also hide informations such as employee salary and so on for security purpose. So in architecture of a database system, we have as the top level is the view level. We can have many views, okay, then logical level, then physical level. Okay, so the view of data consists in 3 layers, 3 levels. View level, hiding or abstraction here, hiding some information. Logical level, the relation between tables or the data itself and its type, and the physical level. Example here, when we use data definition language, DDL, so the first language we learn is data definition language, DDL. Specification notation for defining the database schema, for the schema. Example, how to create a table instructor. It's very simple. Command, create space, table space, the table name instructor, open parentheses, close parentheses. The first column called ID, and what is the type? Char, character with five character. Name, comma. Second field or attribute or column, name. What is the type? It's varchar 20, between parentheses, comma. We'll talk about char and varchar. What is the difference between char and varchar? Also, comma, department name, varchar 20, comma, salary, numeric. Numeric means double. Numeric means float number, okay? Not integer. Has 8 spaces, 8 location, 8 bit, comma 2 comma, 2 decimal after the comma. So it's 8, 6 quotient part, comma, 2 decimal part, okay? 8 means we have 8 minus 2, 6. So the integer part will be 6, comma, 2, okay? Hello. What is the difference between char and varchar? We'll talk about it in the lab, but here the first char is for each ID, the database will reserve 5 fixed amount of lengths, fixed lengths 5 bit, okay? Whereas بالvarchar variable lengths maximum 20 lengths will be maximum 20 bits. If the name has 5 character, so this field will be reserved only 5, but maximum will be 20. So varchar is dynamic and reduce the database size, okay? Whereas in the very important field like ID, we fix it. We can put integer here. We can put integer in the ID, of course, okay? So ID in this table, the ID is later we assign it as a primary key. So it's when we call this table, we access via ID, okay? Later we'll see how to make relation between tables. DDL, data definition language, compiler generate a set of table templates stored in data dictionary. So we have data dictionary. What is the data dictionary? Contains metadata, information about the data itself. So it's a temporary dictionary, temporary tables inside the database, like schema, database schema, integrity constraints, and others. From the integrity constraint, we have, as we said, primary key, which field in each table, when we create any table, we must define which field is very important to call it, to index it, to نرجع له يعني هو الأساس, is the essential key or attribute or columns. So always we make the ID is the primary key. ID must be uniquely identified. No repetition in the ID. May have repetition in the name or department name or salary, but we don't have repetition in its ID for each instructor or student, also for the student. So ID is unique. So that's why ID must be primary key to access it later in our code. Okay, for we have in each table only 90% only one primary key. Later we'll learn another key called foreign key. Later we'll see how. Who can access this table? Authorization. Who can access? And so on, and so on, and so on. Okay. Now we'll talk about another language called data manipulation language, DML. Language for accessing and updating the data organized by the appropriate data model. Data DML, also known as query language. We'll see it. We'll see it in Microsoft Access. Okay, query language. There are basically two types of data manipulate language: procedural DML and non-procedural DML. Procedural DML requires a user to specify what type or what data are needed and how to get those data. Whereas in declarative or non-procedural DML require a user to specify what data are needed without specifying how to get those data. So we'll take another example for this. DML are usually easier to learn than, declarative DML are usually easier to learn than procedural DML. We'll see a lot of example in Microsoft Access. Now, another language we'll learn, SQL Query Language, is the very important language. SQL Query Language is non-procedural language, so it's contained for this declarative language. So SQL Query Language is for declarative DML without specifying how to get those data. It's very easier. A query takes as input several tables. We have input several tables. It can be one or more, and always returns a single table, single output. The output will be always in one table. This is for SQL Query Language. We'll focus this on Microsoft SQL Server. Also, we can use it, of course, in Microsoft Access. Of course, we can write SQL statements inside Microsoft Access. Of course, we can, okay? But mainly in the Microsoft SQL Server. Example here, how to find all instructors in computer science department. Example, for the same table before. So we write this statement, the three statement. Select which field, select name. Now we want to search about the name. So the first command is select space the name of attribute or field or column from which table? From instructor table. So select column from table. Okay. So select space field or two field or three fields, whatever, from one table or two table or three tables. Where is here the condition? Where department name equal computer science in single quote, because it's string in single quote. If it's integer without single quote. So this example will show us from the table instructor, the output will be here. The output will be one column table. The output will be only one column table. The column name is name of the course department. The column will be name for instructor name. Okay, where the department name is computer science. So the output will be only one column table for computer science and the instruction names. Okay, this is the output. Here, this command is very easy. SQL query language is very easy. Okay, to be able to compute complex function, SQL is usually embedded in some higher level language like Microsoft Access, like Python. Example here, we'll see example like Python, like C++, like JavaScript. Sorry, we have in HTML5, we have in PHP language. They have embedded SQL server statement, and so on. We'll see in our lab. Application programs generally access database through one-off. If we want to access any database, one-off. Language extension to allow embedded SQL. Application program interface, like said before, ODBC or Java DBC, object drive or Java, which allow SQL queries to be sent to the database. Okay, so database access from application form. Now we go up one level to the higher level. So non-procedural query database language such as SQL are not as powerful as universal Turing machine. Okay, this is another language. We'll not learn it. Okay, SQL does not support actions such as input from users. SQL statement, they don't communicate with the end user in the platform. So the user cannot access directly the user, not the programmer. The user in the website or whatever, they fill the data inside the fields in Visual Basic, ASP.NET or PHP or Python or C++ or Java or whatever. Okay, so SQL does not support actions directly from the user. Output to display or communication over the network. Okay, so SQL language is embedded language inside higher level language. We'll see how. Example here. Such communication and action must be written in a host language. It must be higher language, higher level language, called host language, like VBA, Visual Basic Application. We'll see it in Microsoft Access and also in Excel, small VBA code. Also in C++, we can communicate directly to the database. Okay, or Java or Python or others with embedded SQL queries that access the data in the database. So first, if you want to make form, we can make form using Python or Java or C++ or even VBA small code or Visual Basics or Visual C# or ASP.NET, or we have many high level language that can have embedded SQL queries. Okay, we'll learn VBA and some example in Java or C++ and some example in Python. Okay, application programs are programs that are used to interact with the database in this fashion. So this is called, this higher or host language, this host language called application programs. Okay, any question for now? Hello.
لا دكتور كل شيء واضح.
لا تمام.
Okay, this chapter 1 is the introduction to the whole book. Okay, later we'll learn for each part of them. Okay, this is a summary, like a summary for whole book. Okay, so database design, we have in database design, we have logical design, deciding on the database schema, like database design required that we find a good collection of relation schema. We'll see how. Business decision, what attributes or fields or columns should we record in the database? We'll see how in Microsoft Access. Example, computer science decision, what relation schema should we have and how should the attributes be distributed among the various relation schema? Okay. Physical design, deciding on the physical layout of the database. Okay, so I will stop here. We'll continue the chapter 1 in the next session. I will stop in this session. So okay, I will stop here.